Good morning. Today is October 2nd, 2022. I'm meeting today with Mr. Jim Kepler at his home in Greeley, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Welcome, Jim, and thanks for sitting down today to tell your story.
Oh, thank you, Brad.
Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, date of birth, where you were born, a little bit about your family.
Well, I had a kind of interesting youth because my mother was quite ill at the time, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. So it seemed like it was annually. Might have been more than that. They'd go back to Mayo's and do all kinds of testing, and they just couldn't make her right. So this one summer, the second summer, I think, that they went out there, they dropped me off at the farm, my aunt and uncle's farm, just outside of Dalton.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so, boy, you put a young kid in a farmyard, he's going to play on everything. So I explored every barn and all that stuff. Well, it just sort of happened that the augers had 3 augers, and of course between loads you just turn them off. And a couple of times the guys that start cranking it, you can't do that. You got to pull it to compression, and then just give it a little jerk. And so, the handle would come off and hit him in the face. So my uncle finally said, "Jimmy," he always called me Jimmy, I want Jimmy to be the only one starting these augers.
How old were you?
Oh, 11.
Oh, wow.
So then that was my first year out there. And I had, you've seen my old truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that was a junker, I mean, it had a big fuel tank on it and a compressor and tools to repair things. But the big gas tank is what I used mostly. I'd gas up every morning. The combines would come over and get close enough that I could jump over and fill them up. Then they'd head out to the fields, and he had 3 John Deere combines, which was nice. He was maybe the upper end of a type of farmer, but great guy, great. Well, him and my aunt Gertie. So anyway, every day I'd do that. Okay, I'd gas up everything, make sure everything was ready for the next day. So my uncle was quite impressed with that, and he said, "I want you to come back next summer for harvest, and I'm going to put you on a combine." It's like, the ultimate. Well, unfortunately, that winter my mother passed away.
Oh, boy.
And so I just I didn't even want to go, I just went out of the sales kind of thing. So anyway, back to through high school.
But to back up, you grew up in Fort Collins.
Yes.
Were you born in Fort Collins?
No, I was born in Scottsbluff, Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what was I talking about?
Just your childhood in Fort Collins, growing up.
Yeah. Of course, we'd ride our bikes across town and be out till 10 o'clock at night, riding your bike home from somebody's house. And the parents really didn't think anything of it.
Yeah,
It was just kind of a normal thing. Fort Collins has a trolley, which everyone, if it was inclement weather, we'd take the trolley.
Wow.
It came within about 6 blocks of my house and went into the park and dropped us off. And at that time they had a swimming pool, but it was just a dugout from the shore, and then they piled, I guess, I don't know what it was, But anyway, they made a dike out of it, and it was like a swimming pool. Well, if you'll recall the polio outbreak, and so everybody, just kind of like this COVID thing, everybody thinks it's here, I'm gonna get me, you know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of hysterical in a way, but anyway, long story. So she kept saying, you better ask your uncle about that old truck. 'Cause I know you love it. I know you should have it, but you got to talk to him. Well, that went on for a while, and then one day we were over there, my son and I think we went to Cabela's. But anyway, we went over to see my aunt and uncle, and my aunt had a stroke, and so she was seriously paralyzed on one side. So. Well, anyway, we were at their one of their anniversaries, wedding anniversary, and it was in the Elks Lodge in Sydney. And so we of course went. All my family went. I don't know how much of his family, because we don't know him. But the room was pleasantly full, and so I assume most of them were just either neighbor friends or maybe a distant relative or something. But anyway, at the end of the deal, most everybody had left except for his family. And we're talking, and all of a sudden he just looks over and he goes, you know, I always thought you should have that job.
I'll be darned.
Just like that. So he wouldn't let me have, well, he wouldn't let anybody have anything until he was gone or they paid him, one of the two. But yeah, so he was good to me. So was my aunt. And my dad remarried, and it was one of those, I called a mistake, yeah, not looking at it from their side. Two lonely people, two widows. So that's probably what entered into it and made that work. So anyway, I was in high school, and my senior year, this buddy of mine comes up to me and he said, we're going in the Marines. Are you going to go? Just a challenge. And I immediately said, yeah, sure, heck yes. Got to be somewhere. So we all joined. There was 5 of us actually from Fort Collins, and we all joined together.
Now, what year would that have been?
That'd been 1962.
62. So Vietnam, nothing had flared up by then. It was
no. But there was the Cuban Missile
Oh,
Crisis.
that's right. Yeah.
So anyway, in boot camp, they called us into the duty officer's tent. And of course, you stand at attention, and he gives you addies, and he says, you Marines have been picked for sea duty. I don't know what the heck that was, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, now, were you 5 buddies able to go through boot camp together, or did you get separated once you...
No, we were all together through boot camp, and then we all went to our duty stations, and let me think. So one of them, just a happenstance meeting, and then there was another one that was actually my best friend, and he was a sheriff's deputy down in Texas, and the time frame doesn't work quite right, but because we'd been out of the Corps for quite a while. But anyway, as he retired from the sheriff's department, and one of his deputy buddies went over to his house and found him face down.
I'll be darned. Huh.
So anyway, he's gone. I don't know about the California guy. I assume he's still there. I think that's it. The rest of them are gone.
Well, how was that going from the carefree life of Fort Collins, Colorado, to the Marine Corps? Was that much of an adjustment for you? I mean, and boot camp and military life and Marine life. I mean,
Yeah.
What kind of adjustment was that for you?
Well, it's a tremendous adjustment.
Yeah.
But when you're in the Marine Corps, like you first enter, and then you look back and go, boy, I was a scuzzball at home.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, racing around and getting stopped by the cops all the time, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I felt proud about that, and I've always held that in high esteem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So back to the entry. Well, turns out that very few Marines get picked for sea duty. And
Any idea why you and the others were chosen?
no, absolutely nothing. Just height, weight, probably facial hair. I don't know what all they judge you on, but if you have anything that's not under their rules, or is under their rules, and not supposed to, then they'll just reject you. So they got 180 guys to pick from.
Man. Wow.
We were watching the trucks roll down Highway 101 in California, and for 2 weeks we watched them, and you could bet they were full of gear, all kinds of gear, going to Vietnam.
Wow.
So anyway, I go to sea school out right near Norfolk, Virginia, just south of there, little town, and we had our barracks there.
Well, now where did you do? Did you do boot camp on the East Coast or the West Coast?
On the west.
West Coast, and then were shipped clear to the East Coast then. Well, I imagine growing up outside of trips back to Nebraska and such, you probably hadn't traveled much, had you?
Not too much, no.
Yeah. Oh
We
wow.
went to California after my mom died. We took Granddad, and that's a weird combination of people, but we got along pretty good. But anyway, so we were watching all this convoy of equipment heading out, and we knew that we was heard or figured out that it was going to Vietnam.
Oh boy.
So I was still in training at sea school, and a truck came running out to the field. We were training on the big 5-inch guns, and they'd have a dummy out there, and you're not supposed to hit it. You know, it's a prop, and but it was like a small boat, and if you hit it, you were kind of in trouble. I don't know what they do to you, but so anyway, we're out there on the range. It was like midday. The truck comes rumbling out there and stops, and he's got a clipboard, and he read 3 names. My name, James Richard, and my buddy's name from Fort Collins, which is James Robert. And so we got duty stations for the full entire time we were in the Corps.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. So that was nice. And then, let me think. So anyway, we hopped in the truck and went back to the barracks, and the lieutenant was standing at the top of the steps, and he says, you men have 30 minutes to get up there, get all your uniforms packed, ready to go, and shower if you got time, but for sure shave. That was it. So we got back in the truck and took us down to the naval shipyard, and that's huge, big, and he dropped us off at this entry point. Said, well, where's the Albany? We're supposed to go to the Albany. He goes, oh, it's down there on Pier 7. So can you give us a ride down there? And he goes, nope, this is as far as I can take you. You know, that's typical. But yeah, we had some interesting travels.
So you were on the USS Albany?
USS Albany, yeah.
And what type of ship was the Albany then?
It was an old heavy cruiser, and it was converted over to a battleship.
Oh, huh.
Yeah. And we had the nuclear warheads. We had the Talos and Tartar warheads. So
Wow.
we, at one point, there was a newspaper article written in the Norfolk Times, and it said, USS Albany does historic missile firing. It was supposed to be 4, 2 on each side. One of them failed. And the press didn't know the difference, you know, so we all laughed about that. But anyway, we sailed hot down to Cuba, and then we became part of the bargain, what am I trying to say? You know, the embargo.
Right, yeah.
And so about 4 months back and forth. Couldn't see land, so we were far enough out, you know, we were literally off the coast.
So that was the rush to get, I was wondering why there was such a rush. You got 30 minutes to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, that Albany was actually moving when we went aboard. Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, that begs the question. Here's a landlocked boy from Fort Collins. How was it going to sea? Did you get your sea legs, or?
Yeah, it was kind of a real weird, I don't understand it to this day, but growing up, I could not sit for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, because you know, you're a kid, so you're put in the back seat, and my folks both smoked.
Yeah.
And we had an old Hudson, didn't have air conditioning or anything. Excuse me. We'd go from here to Estes, and I'd be just sick as could be. You know. So anyway, as I settled in there on the ship, I can remember just looking in the mirror at myself and saying, "You're not going to be seasick." And I just kept repeating it until somebody else walked in, and it never was. And we were in some really high seas, crossing the Atlantic and in that area. Yeah, real high swells. Almost small ships could actually get turned over.
Wow.
You know, but we were big enough that would never happen, and just tore the ship up a little bit, though.
Huh.
You know.
Yeah, I can't imagine. How big was the Marine contingent on that ship?
We had 43 Marines. We had a commanding officer. He was usually a first lieutenant, and then I'm trying to think what his title would be, but he was an old, very old first sergeant, and so he was treated in pretty high esteem. So, and then we had kind of a plethora of corporals and lance corporals and whatnot, and we just kind of we were guards, so that was our job. So anyway, we did a Mediterranean cruise, and that was about, several months. That was nice. Where we port, like we ported in Pisa one time.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're right there by where that leaning tower of Pisa is. And they all look alike, so I can't really see boy, this was memorable because every place we went, we were, ports are typically not clean. They're not, they don't want them, they don't care about that.
Yeah.
Just get people here to there. And so you get grubby just being in town,
Really?
doing a little shopping. So, and there were some foolish mistakes made by some of the guys. We had one guy that he bought a little Luther pistol, and they put it in a box, and they act like the police are coming here, and then you get 2 blocks away and open it up, and it's a rock.
Oh, really?
There was a lot of that going on. So we got to where we'd open it, and of course they'd scream and yell, "Dude, don't open that! Don't open that!" Okay, there's a pistol in there. I'll take it.
Oh, man.
So after, of course, we did the whole Mediterranean. We did we did the France. Ported at, I think it's Cannes and Nice, yeah, in that area. So that was nice, and it was during the film festival.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there was a lot of activity, and
Did you see any celebrities? Do you remember?
no, I don't think so. At that age, I don't know much about that, so
Yeah.
nor did I care. But anyway, so then we moved on around the bottom part of France over to Spain and reported there. And that was nice. There was kind of an island. Never heard it mentioned until the last year or so now. I know people are going there. That's what's funny. And it was in Pisa. And it's a little island. You have to boat over. But, and this buddy of mine, Jim, we decided we'd, explore over there. So we got over there, and as we're walking down the street, all of a sudden there's this big sign. It says Colorado Bar.
Really?
Yeah. So we said, well,
Yeah.
the owner's got to be at least through Colorado, or something impressed him to name it that. But we never met anybody, and then nobody else in there spoke English, and they didn't really want to give you the time of day. So we left there, but it was beautiful. It was nice. And let's see, from there we went on. Oh, we ported at Norfolk, and they bussed us down to Rome. And it was during the New Year. And I guess the Italians believe in one of their traditions is that they throw out the old out the window. Doesn't matter if it's on the second or third floor, and then bring in the new. And everybody does it, so it's a complete citywide hobby. So we got caught.
Uh-oh.
Running down the street. And they start throwing stuff at you, I don't think any of us got hit. I'd have got splattered a little bit.
Yeah.
So then, of course, we were back, bussed back to Norfolk. And that's where we just started making the rounds. Went up to Pisa. And I guess on the way back, they decided to take us to where the mafia is. To the
Sicily?
Yeah, Sicily. Yeah, and of course, our first sergeant, he was our father,
Yeah.
and he'd say, don't mess with those guys. You see them come in, just get up and leave. Leave your bottle of beer, get out of there, and stay in a group. They probably never attack you if you're in a group. So, and we did have one encounter, but didn't develop it to anything. But there was a young Italian kid that appeared to be, kind of little bit retarded, and so he comes in and he's wearing the pin, so we recognized that he was mafia, because they have a collar pin, and he wants us to buy him beer or give him money or something. Get out of here, leave us alone. Came back again, did it again. This time we got pretty wordy with him and he left. Comes back with 6 great big guys. So we all just kind of went, okay, stand up, stay together. We're going to have to walk past him to get out the door. And just be aware of, if one of us gets jumped, then it's just a scramble. But they left us alone. And it was because there was something, it was probably, I don't know, 10 or 12. And then we sailed back to the United States, ordered at Norfolk. We had to offload the nuclear warheads beforehand. And that's up north of there, and I can't ever remember the name of that. It's a little bitty port, but they handle the nukes. After you've unloaded that, then the ship can go anywhere. Before that, it's heavily controlled. So.
And you had the nukes when you did your Mediterranean cruise?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right.
No.
No.
Anytime you're a certain distance, a long distance, from an active war zone, then you probably will have the missiles. But just cruising around, no.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So then my 2 years was up, and a corporal came over and handed me my orders. He's handing out to everybody, and mine said can't think of it right now. It's a branch of the military police has accepted your application to stay in our barracks, to be in our barracks. And I don't know why they did that, because I never saw it before, but yeah, so we went over there, and it was decent. The unit that I was with originally had moved maybe a week or two before to Vietnam.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and so they were in the thick of it. So anyway, I went to California. I had originally 13 real days until my discharge. And then, of course, they extended the Navy indefinitely, all naval branches. And so then you didn't know, had no clue when you're going to get out. Well, I had such a good job. I had a job that I really liked, and it was the north half of the base, and it was patrol, And we had a couple of accidents and some speeders that give you a bad time, and just that normal stuff. But that was a good job. Our sergeant just more or less told us, you'll probably never hear from me, because he was getting out the same time we were. And he was a funny little Texan guy. So one of the guys that was in our unit, on the ship. His name was anyway, last name Dylan. Nothing. And we became really good friends. Every time we'd go to a convention, we'd usually share a room, and he was just a good guy. Didn't remember him too much. When we were active on the ship, but then afterwards, he started a list of everybody, took their name, and then asked around if you're talking to a Marine was served exactly like you did, and you say, well, what about we had a guy named Champagne. What about Champagne? Well, I haven't heard from him or anything. Or he knew that he went back home. He was Canadian. And so anyway, we were in and out of ports for 2 years. And at one point they had to dry dock us because they were working on the bottom of the hull. Don't know what they were doing, but the ship is hanging on girders or something. And they're down there welding away, cutting away, or whatever. But during that time, they knew it was going to be a 2 or 3 month, not checkup, but repair. And so they just planned on that time. So we moved all of our gear, our personal gear, our uniforms and all that, over to the barracks. Barracks was right there, Marine Corps Barracks. And it's right in that little area where the Constitution is moored. And that's right downtown Boston.
So you were based out of Boston, or they just went for the ship repair up there?
Yeah, just ship repair.
Oh, okay, uh-huh.
Yeah, so then after that, deal was up, and we got back on the ship, and then again we just sailed up and down the seaboard, and some places were decent. I think the coldest I've ever been in my life was at Norfolk. No, Mayport, Virginia, or Florida.
Really?
Yeah, and the air was chilly, and I was under a vent, so I always had air blowing on me. And I didn't have any source to get more blankets or anything, so I just laid there.
Jeez.
It was cold.
Yeah, while we're on the subject, talk about life on the ship. What life was like as far as your sleeping conditions, the food, what you guys did when you weren't on duty.
Well, the ship was set up for what they call port starboard duty. So in other words, one side, port side, is Monday, and Tuesday is the other one, and so then you just leapfrog every other day. And that sounds nice because you got a day free. Yeah, do whatever you want. No. The NCOs that were our NCOs took advantage of that. And they'd make you do all kinds of scrubbing and polishing brass tie bar knuckles, and it just was. And I really liked going back on duty. Number one, you dress real nice and get all showered up and everything. And then they were on 8-hour shifts. So you were on 8, off 8, on 8.
Mm.
And your duty day, to me, duty day was the best day, in the week. And then every once in a while, we'd get liberty, and if we wanted to go somewhere, we could, or they could just stay there and read or gamble. A lot of them gambled. So anyway, it was you were busy, so you didn't feel like it was, a burden on you. But in reality, it kind of was. But
Wow.
I really started enjoying the police part of it, and
Because it wasn't part of the duty of the Marines on a ship was to handle the brig?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And we in the 2 years I was on there was one prisoner.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, his sentence was 1 week in the brig, and of course he was the kind of guy that was just testy at the world anyway, And so you'd be sitting there at your desk, and he'd be sitting in his cell, just glaring. It was nuts, but and then you have all these images of him, taking you out,
Yeah.
and after he's out of the brig, and nothing happened.
Huh.
So my tour was up 2 years, and I get orders. Now, Kalamazoo, North Carolina is right there. So you assume you're going to go there. Well, no. They sent me back to Pendleton, Camp Pendleton. And again, I ultimately joined that Marine Corps police barracks. So everybody in there was doing the same thing, and that was a short timers station. So if you were getting out, that's where they had you assigned. And we had a brig, never used it. First day I was there, they told me I was on brig duty. Get you a fresh mug of coffee and head on down there. It's in the barn at the end of this barn. So I go down there, and doors wide open, bed's not made. There was nobody in the brig. Hadn't been for probably years, The only people you could put in the brig is if somebody came on the base and started doing some damage, and then you can it's basically a citizen's arrest. And then, but most of the time it's just surfers, and they surf the, what is that, Baja Bay or something like that. It's considered really, in the United States side, they claim it's one of the best areas for surfing. And of course, we couldn't go out in the ocean and retrieve them, we try to signal them in, but most of them get right to the shore, do that fishtail deal, and away they go. And we had a lot of them get away from us. Wasn't anything we could do. And it was like, okay, what are they doing? They're surfing, not hurting anything.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of a double standard in all of our minds. And I didn't like it, We arrested a kid one time there was a train that ran along there, and there was this huge trestle. It was probably over 100 feet long, and it was over a big wash ravine, pretty deep. And so we had a lot of, what was I going to say? Oh, we had a lot of surfers in that area. And we had this one kid cornered. He gets on the railroad tracks, gets halfway, train's coming. We all the MPs boogied out like right away, and he was stuck out there and got killed.
Oh, man.
And we caused that. That was sad. We caused all of it.
Now, you said your enlistment was up. Was there any thought of re-opping or making it a career, or were you?
Well, yeah, there was. I wasn't thinking doing a career in the Marines, but I thought, could stay there a few more years and get more training and specialized training and stuff. But so I went in and talked to them about re-enlisting, and they said, the only option is 4 more years. I don't want to do 4 more years. So that kind of ended that thought. So I decided that, I'd just go ahead and get out and come home. And my buddy said, yeah, he said, that's it, I won't have anything more to do with the Marine Corps. Well, I wanted to join the reserves. And so it's kind of a weird deal. I thought, they got to be set up with a reserve unit in Fort Collins, 30, 40 Marines on, doing weekend duties. I would think that's what was happening. So I met with the recruiter. He said, oh, yeah, we can get you signed up. No problem. Typical recruiter. And so I said, well, just before I signed, I said, by the way, where are we training? Where's our weekends? Out there at the National Guard headquarters. And then a nice big building and a big courtyard. Some heavy equipment sitting in there. But anyway, he said, oh, no, your duty station would be in some little town I'd never heard of in Texas. I said, he was a sergeant. I said, Sergeant, let me get this straight. I take Friday off from my work, drive to whatever that place in Texas. I serve my duty time, and then I start back in the same thing, And he had no answer for it, of course.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm pretty sure the way my first occupation was, and I'll, of course, tell you about that, but the very, very first one, I don't think of it. Anyway, I get off the subject, so I can't remember. Got out, drove home. My buddy with me through the whole trip.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's funny. But then I was looking for work, and I'd always done filling station work. And in fact, I was offered to take over a station in Fort Collins, and it was a real heavy. It was one of the bigger, nicer ones. And so, but I had just signed up like a month before. So that was the end of that thought. Then I worked a couple of gas stations and just kind of fill in. And one day, my previous boss, when I was in high school, called me at night. And he was rooming with the guy that was the state employment officer or something like that. And he got tired of driving from Denver up. And so they got together and shared an apartment. Anyway, he says, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, he came home, and he's got a really pretty decent job if you're interested. He says, yeah, you bet. So when I got the card for him, like at 8 in the morning, I went right over to the NCR office. Hand him that card. And I guess they keep track of how many people got sent and all this stuff. So anyway, I said, well, what's next? They said, well, the manager over there NCR will, put you to the test or whatever. So anyway, I went over one day and we set it all up, and they have you in a conference room and they just shut the doors so it's quiet and nice. One of the types that it's best to be doing your test in there than with the door open. So anyway, the test was interesting. I wish I had a copy of it. Upper left-hand corner had a gear and a sprocket and a belt. I don't know what all. And there was an arrow showing the direction that it's turning. So the exam part of it was go down through all of these gears and pulleys and everything, and then get to the very bottom right hand one. Which direction is it turning? And so when I got called from Maynard about the job, he said, "You have the job." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You're the only one that passed the test out of about 75 guys."
Huh.
So I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah, sure.
And I worked for NCR as a field tech for 10 years. NCR, of course, at that time was the cash register company. Mm-hmm. And we had developed into small computers and accounting machines and sorting machines. When checks go through a bank, they'll have to be sorted out by area or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, so I worked on those mostly, and there was an interesting time, and I didn't think about it at the time. We had a mechanical disc for storage, turned about 1,000 RPM or something. And it wasn't very big, it was not that big. And you had that, and then, where's it going with that? Oh, I know what it was. And then all the controls were electronic. So you got a blend of two different source inputs.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, and so they were tough, and the school districts and banks were the primary customers. And we had one down at Longmont's school district, and the gal that ran it was kind of typical, kind of grumpy, and this thing didn't work again, and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, she called and said there's, a complaint on the addition or something. It's one of those jobs that takes them 2 hours to figure out what went wrong, or longer. So I went up there, and I think I did that, scratched my head. I started checking voltages through the whole operation, with a multimeter, and got down to the output from the power source was supposed to be like a +8, and it was a -4. One component went out, and so that changed it from 8 to 4, and then it comes to her as an error in the machine, and she just gets super livid about it. So anyway, so we went in there and I worked on it, and usually our repair at that time was excuse me, was to turn the machine off for 20 seconds and then turn it back on. And of course this one, we couldn't get it stable. So when I left there, I told her, I said, it's just like it was when I came. So it's gonna make some mistakes. Just be aware of it, You know how to spot those anyway. So she said, okay, fine. Well, she went to her boss and trumped up some statement that I didn't do. Yeah. Well, he called our salesman, and of course they got together with my boss, and they're all on fire, about this thing. And I said, well, that's kind of normal verbiage when you work on a machine that you aren't confident that you fixed it. You don't know until they've run it a little while, and that's basically what I told her. So everybody was happy for a while. But that was one of the toughest. They had to send in the regional, what's he called, the Western United States. I don't know, he covered a big territory anyway. And he was like the knowledge block, period, He was the knowledge. Well, he was on his way up, I knew that. And I think he flew into Denver and used one of their vehicles to come up. And so, meanwhile, I changed one resistor, just changed it out, and put the same, amount of what it was designed for as far as current flow. And I went and bought one at Radio Shack and cut the ends off and put it in there and soldered it in, turned it on, it worked perfect. Well, Jess gets there and he goes, what do you got going here? I said, well, I got it fixed. He goes, now let me see. It was doing this and this and this and this. Yeah. And you fixed it? Yeah. Never heard of a field man being able to do that before.
Wow. Huh.
So, anyway. So I did my 10 years in Fort Collins at NCR. And then I got restless again and wanted to open a retail store. And my brother-in-law owns the Light Center in Fort Collins. So we just patterned mine exactly after his. And basically we were referring to each other as friendly competitor, my brother-in-law.
Uh-huh.
And he just requested that I stay on the east side of the highway. We'll just split the territory and I'll be on the west side. Of course, around Fort Collins, that west area is just exploding with houses and people. So, but anyway, I came over and I found a decent spot and opened my store, Kepler Lighting, and we had about a 12-year run, but unfortunately it was during the 80s and the economy was real flat. And I know one time I did the statistics, and I would normally do like 75 commercial jobs, pretty good sized churches and restaurants and things like that. And those were pretty decent, and pretty easy to work with those people. Blended with I had an old van that I had bought to haul the Boy Scouts around, because it was a 9-passenger. And we'd sit in there, the customer, building this $300,000, $400,000 house. We'd sit in there and go through the magazines. And I would always say, I like this company better than that company for this reason. And you can decide either one, it doesn't matter. But just so you know that, you know. They arrive with broken glass and you call them right away and a week later you get the glass. Well, probably lost a sale on it. So so anyway, came over and did the store, but financially it just wasn't working. So I sold it all and got my real estate license. That was in '99. And I was with the group real estate for 13 years. And then I moved over to Pro Realty with Mike and the boys. Yeah.
So you finished out your working career in real estate then,
Yeah.
and retired from
Yeah.
real estate?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I went from Snap-on dealer to realtor with the group, and like I said, I was there 13 years. And it was during the better times, you know. I mean, a guy right now might be selling 10 houses a year. To him, that's better times, you know. But for most realtors out there, I've turned my license in, I'm done. But most of them that are still kind of scrape out a living, and they ain't easy. And if they make one mistake, then they're in trouble. So.
Is that probably your favorite career of all the things you did?
No, my favorite was Snap-on tools.
Oh, okay.
I had a big truck and a big territory. And
Now, when did you do? Where did that fit into things?
1990 is when I met with a guy named Al Kling. And Al was he was not in my class, but he was in the next class in high school. But I recognized him on a Boy Scout project. And I didn't realize that we were planting trees on his property. And so he just came out and he was sitting in his trunk and just kind of looking at some of the, you know, the guys that need to give directions. They were, I don't know what you call them in the Boy Scouts, just a little more aggressive parent or something. But so they all walked over and was talking to Al, and all of a sudden it hit me. I said, "Yeah, I know that guy." So it turned out he used to own like a Texaco just at the end of the block where we lived. And so we always got service there. And so we were chatting with him, and said, "What are you doing now?" And he said, "Well, I'm field manager for NCR." I said, "Oh, you have the dream job or something like that." And he goes, "Nah, not so much, not in my, capacity, but you could probably say that for a dealership, Anyway, I just kind of thought about that for the longest time. And one day I was having lunch at Toddy's in Fort Collins. And so I called Al. And I said, "So what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm getting ready for my sales meeting tomorrow. Have one a month." And he always had his out there at one of those hotels on I-25. So, and I think he seemed like I remember he got the same room every year because he just rebook it, for dates. And anyway, I just said, "Well, I've always thought about being a dealer, and I don't know, maybe it's too late now. I'm 47. He said, "You come on over to my house. I want to talk to you." So I got over there, and he said, "You can forget about that age thing because they don't refer to it no more. So I filled out the application and got accepted, and but you got to have a territory. So there was nothing available. So anyway, we finally, oh, I know what it was. We were home here. I was here. Kids were here. They had just gotten home from school. And Al came driving up, and so I looked at it and said, oh, hey, it's Al Queen. And I walked out and I said, hey, Al, how you doing? He says, I'm doing real good. And I hope you think you are too. I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, I have you a territory. I said, well, you know I'm not going to move out of my house, my area. Nope, this one is 35-minute drive. And it was Cheyenne. So, anyway, I did that for 2 years. And then, well, actually, I did more than that, but starts out the change point, I guess you'd call it, is after 2 years, then the main boss in Denver is always pushing stuff your way, and he's just real aggressive. And anyway, we had a little spat one day. It was about something else that was one of my duties, and which really wasn't. I mean, there was nothing ever shown to me that was, but I knew it would help to everybody rather than mailing things. So anyway, I just left there, and we left there as though I hadn't quit or anything like that. And he said, just go back to your house, and within about 2 weeks I'll have your territory ready. And it was pretty much the same as I had before. It was actually better, just because of some of the accesses. And so I did that till 99. And I like the real estate business a lot, especially with the group. The group gives the best training. They're literally training all over the world. Don Tennyson and somebody else I don't know, and Larry
Kendall.
Yeah. Anyway, they built an empire on it, but by then I was kind of disillusioned. A couple of things that I thought weren't right, and it was going to be that, and I put up with it for 10, 12 years, but finally got tired of it.
Well, let's shift gears now and talk about family. How you met Leona and children, grandchildren. Take your story.
Okay.
That part of the story, your life.
So I've got 2 children. I have a son who's 40-something, 48, 47, something like that, and a daughter who's 40-ish, 41 maybe. And both of them are really successful. My daughter married a guy that had a lot of money, and he's turned out to be a really good husband. And they have boy and girl twins, 13 years old. So, and they do a lot with them. They do all kinds of sports, and Chase is the boy, and I'll tell you, he's a good football player. And at that age, for them to be cognizant of what's going on, pretty rare, But yeah, he can tell you stats about football just out of his head. He'll talk about a quarterback that got traded, and the 2 companies, the 2 football companies were both still paying him. and that's today, that's current. So, yeah, he's amazing. Okay, I got my son and his wife live in Houston, Texas. And he is he graduated mechanical engineering from School of Mines, and then got a little, I guess another degree in accounting or something, because he was told that his math area needed to be on top of the game for what field you're going into, because it could be very competitive. So he got good grades the rest of the time he was in college, and he got handpicked by the company he's with, and I'll say the name of it and then explain it. It's Air Liquide. And then if you kind of stop for a second, it's Air Liquid. So they sell every kind of inert gas you can imagine. Some of it's a real high dollar, some of it's just so much a pound, and so on and so forth. But his job has developed into, and I'd say it's been several years, but it developed into a program where this group of engineers, and they all work under my son, so he coordinates what they're doing, and especially when they start a new project. So they live a good life. They were in Paris for 3 years, and we visited them every year. And then sometimes we'd do a trip down south through the Burgundy area, they call it. And
did you ever retrace your steps when you did your Mediterranean cruise in the Marines? Did you get any of those spots?
We were on a bus cruise, so no, I couldn't do that. But I could see the land from the ship, it went that far out. It was interesting.
And your son have children?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a grandson by Jonathan, Susie, and he's smart as a whip, smarter than you can imagine. So he's good. Every once in a while I have to kind of straighten him out when they're here, and that's pretty rare. So, but we go down there, and he's got his play buddies up and down the block. They're in a gated community, so it's pretty nice. But yeah, he's working on one now for ExxonMobil, and I always I shouldn't ask, but I always like to know. So what's this project going to be worth? He said, probably around $90 billion. I was trying to think of the gas. There's a certain gas that they need to get the burners going. And what is it called? Anyway, companies would call all the manufacturers of liquid gas, everybody, and they were desperate for it. They use it. They use it to make car batteries. Well, you know what that's like right now. I mean, a couple of the cars out there are solid batteries in the floorboard. So anyway, he's real busy with that, and it doesn't ever appear, and I'm pretty well suspicious, but it just never appears anybody's, watching him or bugging him or pushing him or any of that. It wouldn't work anyway, but they pretty well leave him alone. He's had other directors that were basically just kind of moving through to their new territory. And he said we've had some that were, you know, they step in on our territory and want to be the boss of it. And so he always has to straighten things out. But as far as his job goes, it's great. And they put all these numbers together. But, you know, you'd think, well, that's not too big a deal. Well, they make the plant. You've seen them along the edge. They make that specifically for that production unit, whatever it is. And so right away you spot the Air Liquide, and they don't, most of the companies won't allow them to put their name on it. You know, it's our company and it's our facility and you want your name on it. No. But they don't, you know, it's just something they overlook.
Yeah.
Don't need to, not that big a deal. So, but he has to figure out how much land they need, and then a big territorial type thing for the equipment that they're putting in there. And and they do a lease on, generally, I guess they wouldn't have to, but they generally do a lease on that piece of property. And the company, from their viewpoint, that's good business, because if we start disliking this unit for some reason, it's faulty all the time or something. And so we're sourced to go out and find somebody that can fix it. Well, if you're under contract, you can't do that.
Yeah, right,
So,
right.
but that's his job. He works at it hard.
Well, talk a little bit about how you met Leona and wooed her and
Well, she was down here from Canada. She graduated from the University of Edmonton. And the job opportunities were stronger in this country. And I think the pay was a little bit more or something. So her and one of the classmates came down to the States. They got in their little Falcon and away they came. And but she got a job right away with Colorado General, and worked side by side beside some famous surgeon.
Wow.
You know, and there's this little, I want to say it's a shack, but it wasn't a very big building. And you walk in, and it was the lost the name. Anyway, it was kind of the 3-2 bar in Denver. You know, everybody wanted to go there. And I just lived a block away, so I'd usually just walk over there, you know, if I was going there. Of course, when I first got down there, I was in school, and we had to study. You know, we'd have books that thick of logic plans, and you gotta make all that work. Anyway, so I called this buddy of mine who had been, I've known him through high school. He was ahead of me, went to CU, became a naval aviation officer.
Yeah.
He only did it for a short time. It wasn't his profession. But he came back to Fort Collins and spotted him somewhere and kind of just reacquainted, and we became really good friends. Well, this one night I was heading over to the bar, and Loy had called me at school and said, I'm going over to the CI, it's called the CI College Inn. And I said, okay, I'll probably be there about 5:36. She goes, okay, I'll get in there and get a table and hold it. So anyway, I walk in the door, and here he sits with 3 other women. You know, we didn't know what the story was yet.
You've been talking this whole time?
Yeah, I have.
Awesome. That's great.
But there was quite a bit of time wasted coughing, though.
That's good. That's good.
We were in the middle of the story of how he met you at the bar.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So
Yeah.
after class, I walk in there, and Lloyd's sitting there, and I said, well, this is suspicious. You're sitting there with 3 other girls, you know. He said, well, you know, he says, I had this, you know, I had retained the use of this one, and I knew they were going to walk in the door and just be frosty as could be, you know. And so he said he invited him to come over and sit at this bench. And so meanwhile, I head over there with another guy, and he was from New Jersey or something like that. And we get over there and walk in, and boy, girl, you know. So anyway, so we sat. Boy, I think the whole group just kind of sat and talked, you know, talked about their life and stuff. And we hadn't actually spoken. The tradition was, at that time, was to get a matchbook cover.
That was your tradition.
And you'd have that in your pocket and say, well, can I give you a call?
Oh, right. Yeah,
Or
okay.
come by the house, pick you up, or whatever. And you'd write it in that matchbook. And but yeah, as it developed, I think the one gal left. She needed to leave because she was working early, and I don't know. I think you and I were the second. She says, well, I don't want to stay out this late from work because of work. And so she started leaving. I said, well, can I give you a lift? Can I give you a ride? She said, oh, no, I've got my car here. And I went, oh, okay. Well, would you give me a ride?
That's a pretty good memory today, Keppy.
So she gave me a ride, but it was the whole atmosphere was pretty cool. And then, but I had her number. I guess a week or so later, and called her, and what was the first thing we did? The movie?
Yeah, Paint Your Wagon.
Paint Your Wagon.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then we went out for dinner one night, and then we figured out that we both skied, and boy, that just took it over the top of the hill. Yeah. So we skied a lot together.
Yeah, we sure did. And then we taught our kids how to ski a lot.
Yeah. It's changed so much
Yeah, yeah.
up there that it's a little discouraging.
So how many years then have you guys been married?
51.
51.
51. Wow.
Yeah, we went to the Gulf Shores of Alabama last year to celebrate our 50th with family. It was fun. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Really
Good
nice.
time.
Well, Jim, as we kind of wind down this interview, I know we've only probably got the tip of the iceberg of your story, but is there anything that I didn't ask you, or any stories that have kind of floated to the top that you want to include in this, that so we can kind of, as best we can, round out your story, or do you think we covered everything you wanted to cover?
I think we covered everything,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
As you look back on your time in the Corps, do you see that as How do you see that? Do you see that as just a chapter in your life, or did it change your life, affect your life, play a role in your life? How would you answer that question?
Well, it would definitely change your life, you know, and it gives you a real solid base for being a United States citizen and a patriot, you know. Whereas I talk to guys all the time, different branches, and they'll say, yeah, I was in the Army. Oh, how was your career? I don't know. And they just don't care, you know. And most of them were the draftees. You know, they weren't happy. So,
Yeah.
but, yeah, it changed my life a lot, you know. So, I've always been mechanically inclined, and I had a chance to go into a service station, but it was just like a week after I'd signed up in the Marines.
Yeah, so you'd said, yeah.
That would have been a gold mine.
Well, I want to thank you. What we'll do after this interview is we'll go through your pictures, but I want to thank you for sitting down to tell your story today, and more importantly, I want to thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Brad. Here is the day we graduated from boot camp in San Diego.
And that's your 5 buddies from Fort Collins?
Yeah, I'm on the right, and there's I can't quite see it, but Louis Sudworth, Tom Olson, and Chris Barkley.
And Kyle.
And Jim Kyle, yeah. That is a picture of me in my everyday duty uniform, and I passed by the chapel and there was a couple of guys in there, and so I asked them to take my picture, and they did. And to me, that's it, just showing how we dressed, dressing.
Yeah.
And that was a boot camp picture. We had been in there. Actually, it's probably IDR, which is the next level, because by then they'd started to issue weapons for training, and they just hand them out, here, 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 here. And it came to me, and he hands me a BAR.
Oh, jeez.
BAR is, of course, the heaviest man-carried rifle ever made.
Yeah, right. And that's where you got your training on, was a BAR?
Well, that was just one day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can't see what it is.
You're laying on the ground, looks like you're shooting, or...
Oh, yeah, just rifle. That's rifle training.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the groups that you see there were Marines on Liberty. And we went into town. We were hanging around the different parts of Rome. And this vendor, they always just come up to you and try to sell you watches or whatever their deal is. And so we were just doing nothing, and he walks up and wants to sell us stuff. So everybody just started picking on him. We had him pretty well covered. But that was kind of a nice place. Where's the Rome, the Pope live?
Oh, Vatican?
Yeah, the Vatican. Yeah, we were able to wander all around it. And we did the 3 coins in a fountain kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Catacombs.
oh yeah, the catacombs. That was funny. The whole undercarriage of Rome is tunnels, and then they cut out one little house, and that's their family that they can bury. Yeah, it's really spooky.
Huh.
So we're walking through this passageway, and I noticed Jim Kyle was right behind me, and he got fascinated with something was looking off. And the group moved it forward. Well, no big deal, you know, it's like 25 feet. But I turned my, whatever it was, flashlight, I think, and I stepped back into one of those doorways. And I waited till he was right beside me, and then I jumped out at him. Thought he was going to beat me to death.